Picture this. You open Netflix and see a brand new Batman series that feels exactly like classic Gotham. The tone, the pacing, even the way the camera moves. It hooks you immediately. But here is the twist. No human writer ever typed a full script, and half the city you are seeing never existed on a physical set. It was generated, extended, and greenlit by Netflix AI, trained on a century of Warner Bros. History. That is the real story behind Netflix spending $82 billion to acquire Warner Bros. Discovery. On paper, it is a massive media merger. In reality, it is a technology land grab. Netflix is not just buying Batman, Harry Potter, and HBO shows. It is buying the data, the contracts, and the creative DNA it needs to turn Hollywood into an algorithmic factory. And in a minute, you will see why this changes who gets hired, what gets made, and what you are even allowed to watch. Let us start with that $82 billion handshake. This was an all-stock deal that instantly repriced Warner Bros. Like a high-growth tech company, not a dusty old studio. Analysts are looking at one equation: intellectual property at scale, plus global distribution, plus deep viewer data. Whoever controls that stack now sets the floor for how the entire industry is valued. Overnight, every rival studio had to ask, are we a media company, or are we a data company pretending to be one? Wall Street mostly cheered. Netflix stock jumped on expectations of billions in cost synergies and new pricing power against Roku, Apple, and cable operators. Disney's market cap briefly spiked on takeover rumors, then slid as investors did the math on sports networks, theme parks, and debt. Comcast, Universal, and Amazon MGM suddenly looked either underarmed or underleveraged, depending on how aggressive they want to be. But here is the part nobody on those earnings calls said out loud. The real prize is not just the films. It is the training data. Netflix has been quietly building toward this moment for almost 20 years. Back in 2006, the Netflix prize competition put its recommendation algorithm on the map, offering $1 million to anyone who could predict viewing behavior just 10% better. That obsession with prediction became a moat, cutting churn and keeping 260 million plus subscribers watching longer. Today, most of what you click is not found by search. It is pushed to you by machine learning models deciding which rows you see in what order with which thumbnail. Even the artwork has been AI-driven for years. Netflix generates thousands of thumbnail variants for a single title, then A/B tests them at massive scale. If you love romantic comedies, you might see a close-up of a couple almost kissing. If you binge true crime, you might see the same show framed as a mystery. Computer vision and behavior data decide which image makes you click. And here is the unsettling part. The same logic that optimizes thumbnails can steer which stories get told in the first place. Production has already felt the tremors. In 2023, Netflix released a Japanese short called The Dog and the Boy that used AI-generated backgrounds instead of hand-drawn art. Animators were furious, but Netflix got exactly what it wanted: a live test of generative tools in a professional pipeline. Behind the scenes, AI-assisted dubbing, lip sync, quality control, and even script scoring were rolling out quietly. None of this fully replaced writers or directors. It just gave Netflix a data-heavy steering wheel over what to make and how to package it. Now the philosophy is shifting. AI is moving from distribution optimizer to creative engine. Instead of just deciding which show you see, it begins to shape how that show looks, sounds, and maybe even gets written. Netflix telegraphed this early with job listings for AI product roles paying up to $900,000, focused on generative models and synthetic media. So when Netflix buys Warner Bros., it is not just absorbing a studio. It is plugging a 100-year-long fire hose of scripts, footage, and effects into that creative engine. Think about what lives inside the Warner Bros. Vault. Final cuts and raw dailies, alternate takes and bloopers, storyboards, animatics, and script revisions dating back to the 1920s. When you feed that into large multimodal models, you are not just training on images and text. You are teaching an AI how cinematic language evolved, from black and white melodramas to 4K high dynamic range blockbusters. It can learn pacing, shot composition, character arcs, and how audiences react to specific beats across decades. Scripts alone form a massive text corpus of genre, structure, and tone. A model trained on thousands of Warner screenplays can internalize the difference between a Christopher Nolan twist and a Casablanca-style third act. Pair that with time-coded footage and it can map words to camera moves, lighting setups, and performance choices. Warner's deep history in animation and visual effects turns this into a production pipeline, not just a research project. And here's where the stakes jump. Rivals can buy off-the-shelf models, but they cannot legally copy a Warner-trained system without that same IP. From there, the endgame looks like IP as a service. Imagine typing a prompt that spins up an infinite stream of canon-compliant Gotham stories, Hogwarts side quests, or new Looney Tunes gags. The model is constrained by strict lore and style rules learned from the archive. Netflix would not just stream Warner universes, it could algorithmically extend them on demand. In a minute, we will get to what that means for jobs and paychecks. But first, we need to talk about how greenlighting itself is about to be automated. Greenlighting used to be about an executive's gut. Now it is an optimization problem. Netflix can run a script through language models that score pacing, act breaks, character arcs, and genre beats against thousands of past hits and flops. A Batman spec that structurally mirrors The Dark Knight and Joker will light up the dashboard as safe. A weird, slow burn science fiction drama with no clear comparisons will look risky. Studios have always used coverage grids and test scores. AI just scales that to an almost terrifying precision. Here is where ethics get slippery. When data informed quietly becomes data dictated, creative freedom shrinks. If a model flags queer romances, mid-budget adult dramas, or non-franchise horror as underperformers, executives can hide behind probability curves to say no. Predictive analytics firms already claim they can forecast opening weekends by tweaking cast, budget, and release date, and Warner reportedly used those tools even before this deal. Tie that to Netflix's completion rates, rewatch stats, and pause points, and originality gets sandblasted in favor of what the spreadsheet says will work. The impact reaches the set itself. Stagecraft-style LED volumes were the proof of concept. Generative tools are the industrialization. Instead of building physical sets for weeks, Netflix can feed a prompt, a style reference, and Warner's production design history into an AI pipeline that spits out fully lit, camera-ready virtual environments. Virtual New York at sunrise, 1930s Gotham, or a photoreal Hogwarts courtyard can be dialed in by a small team. The new mantra becomes, we will re-render it overnight, not we will fix it in post. Post-production compresses too. AI rotoscoping automasks actors in minutes instead of days. Color grading assistants learn a show's look from a few reference scenes, then propose corrections across an entire season. Editing assistants watch dailies, tag performances, and assemble rough cuts based on script beats. Dialogue cleanup, crowd noise removal, and dubbing alignment become near one-click presets. Budgets feel the shock. If virtual production and automation cut 20 to 40% of crude days, a $150 million effects movie might slide under $90 million. That is great for margins, brutal for headcount. So what happens to the people who make movies? Hollywood job descriptions are already mutating. Staff writers keep a second monitor open, not just for final draft, but for chat-based AI churning through alternate log lines and character backstories in minutes. Directors feed style prompts into image generators to block out coverage and lighting before a single truck rolls. New roles appear quietly on call sheets. AI prompt artists. World builders who maintain coherent lore across films and games. AI ethicists who audit datasets for bias, consent, and copyright landmines. For now, the pattern looks less like instant replacement and more like exoskeletons for existing crew. One compositor can manage shots that once needed a 10-person team using generative tools to fill skies, crowds, and signage. Script coordinators run automated coverage passes that flag pacing issues and continuity errors across a whole franchise. But unions see the writing on the wall. The Writers Guild and SAG-AFTRA fought hard in 2023 to limit digital replicas and AI training on performances. Those deals assumed AI was a side tool. This merger says AI is the pipeline. Next contracts will have to grapple with questions nobody has answered yet. What is the minimum human staffing on an AI-heavy production? Who gets credit when a model rewrites 40% of a scene? How do residuals work when a show quietly spawns 50 localized AI-generated variants for different regions? Articles have already framed Netflix's Warner deal as an AI supercharger. For unions, it is a bargaining alarm bell, because whoever defines human contribution in this era effectively defines who gets paid. And hovering over all of this is the ghost in the machine. When AI starts to decide which stories are safe, which faces are bankable, and which identities are too risky, culture itself gets optimized. Not for truth or beauty, but for completion rates and four-quadrant appeal. This Netflix Warner Bros. Deal is not just one more merger. It is the moment Hollywood admits that its most valuable asset is no longer the backlot. It is the dataset. The question is not, can they do it? They already can. The question is, what rules are we going to live under? So here is where you come in. If you are a creator, you need to understand that prompts, data literacy, and contract language are now part of the job. If you are a fan, you should be asking how much of what you watch is chosen by you and how much is chosen for you by a model trained on someone else's work. I am going to be tracking every move Netflix, Disney, Amazon, and the guilds make as this post-human Hollywood takes shape. Subscribe if you want deep dives on the next battles over AI, jobs, and the future of storytelling. And tell me in the comments, are you excited by algorithmic universes, or does this feel like the end of movies as we know them?